Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Stitching Tales. I am Johanna Lundström.
And I am Malena Hjerpe.
And today we're going to talk about newsletter, and in particular sewing newsletter. Do we need them? Do you as a reader find them useful? And is it worth your effort? So Malena, you want to talk about newsletters today. Why are you interested in starting a newsletter?
Yeah, I don't have a newsletter at the moment, but I really want to get one because, so the reason why I want one is I don't have a website at the moment that I'm very active on. I think my previous website for Pattern by Malena is, I think I updated it like 2 years ago maybe. So I don't have all the all the news and everything there. And Instagram, it's great to reach out to your customers, but I mean, it's a lot of talk now about the algorithm, and you don't get as many viewings or likes or anything at the moment. And Instagram, you really are dependent on somebody else when you only are on Instagram. And what if they shut down for a day or something? So I want to be more independent with how I reach my customers. And that's why I want to get a newsletter instead, because then I can communicate directly to the customer. And if I, for example, would be more active on my blog again, then I mean I would have to work really hard and to get more followings there. I have to be really active, I think, before people started going there again on a So that's why I'm thinking about newsletter. That might be a really good way of actually getting to people's inboxes. I don't know if they read them. I mean, that's their choice, of course, but at least they get them. How do you think about this, like my reasoning why I want a newsletter? Does it make sense?
Yes, it definitely makes sense. I've been having a newsletter since, I think, 2019 or 2000. Yeah, so probably about 4 years now. I think you make a really good point about the algorithms, because I think many of us in the sewing community has relied a lot on social media, and I think Instagram in particular. I don't know about you, Malena, but if I look at my stats, I would say that just reach, not likes, just reach, I would think that I normally reach about 1/10 of my audience with a lot of the posts I do.
Yeah, that's not a lot. I mean, compared to how many followers you have. Yeah.
And I think also the bigger you get, I think I have about 13,000 followers, the less reach you get. So, for instance, I'm talking mostly about stories now, I would say, but I don't think I ever reach more than a few thousand. So I would say you maybe have a reach about 10 to 20%. Of course, if you're a smaller Instagram creator, you will definitely have a higher percentage, but the actual reach will, of course, still be smaller, obviously. I mean, so that's why it's kind of important to have a really large audience. But your engagement will always drop when you get bigger, unless you have some particular spectacular way of creating content that are really engaging. But I think for most of us, it's definitely a struggle. And it's also, I would say, it's a pay-to-play situation. I think we're going to see more and more on the Meta platforms. I'm talking about Facebook and Instagram. You're going to have to pay to get reach. So I think you can achieve a lot by doing more sponsored posts. But again, it's also, you don't own that audience. So you're in the hands of the algorithms, because if the algorithms decide that your content isn't engaging enough, then you will be less and less exposed to your audience, the ones that has determined to subscribe to you. So yeah, I think, in my opinion, I think a newsletter is a way more effective way of reaching your audience. And I think also for comparison, as I said, I'm just pulling this data out of my thin air, but I think roughly about 10 to 20%. I think it's when you're a bigger Instagram creator, you will end up around there. And my open rate for my email newsletter, which I send, I think about one a month, I have about a 40 to 50% open rate, which is incredibly high. I think the industry average is about 20, but I think, and I have about 10,000 subscribers on my email list, on my newsletter. So you make the math. It's
yeah. Yeah, you definitely reach more people there then. And also, I kind of miss like writing longer, basically blog posts and like sewing tutorials or something like pattern hacks or whatever. And on Instagram, you have to be really short. You can't really do that on Instagram. So I do miss to write longer posts. And then I think, but I can do that on a newsletter instead, or we will. I want to ask, like, if I, for example, want to make a sew along or something on a sample that I've done, how do I do that in a newsletter? Can I just write it in the letter, or will it be like an attachment instead, or like a PDF attachment? Like how can you do that in the best way?
The most common way is actually, it does mean double work, is that you actually start updating your blog again, and then you promote that particular content and perhaps other pieces of content that are related to that. So there's usually a link thing going on. So basically you need to have your own platform to link to that. That's the most common way of doing newsletter. When it comes to sewing newsletter, most everyone does that they decide on a theme, for instance, maybe how to make your own trousers, and then they link to a particular tutorial or a couple of different tutorials. The other option that I think you're looking into is more of actually making the entire email tutorial. That is not common, so I don't know how the readers will respond to that. It will be very interesting if you are listening today and want to help Malena out and give her some more ideas. How would you feel about that, having a more image and text-heavy email? Because that's what you kind of have to deal with then, Malena. What's your thought about that when I say it like this?
Like, damn, I didn't want to make a website. I was trying to avoid that because right now, like, I don't want to make a like half-assed, like okay website. I want to make a really good one if I do. So that's why I'm like, I don't have the time and energy right now to do it. So I was hoping like the newsletter would, I can only focus on that instead. But I mean, when you say it like that, yeah, it totally makes sense, obviously, to do a proper blog post and then just link to that in the newsletter. Yeah, I totally understand that. I might need to rethink my strategy a little bit then, but yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, I think the only way you can get around that is doing like quick tips or shortcuts. For instance, if you do like a really like bite-sized content, for instance, like top 10 tips for sewing with knits, or how to pick the best elastic. I think you could do those very like focused, short newsletters. So I'm not saying that you can't do it, but I definitely say that you will not be able to do it as image heavy. So I think you will be more successful if you do more like the shorter text-based emails. That's my hunch. At least that's how I consume emails. I think I would be a bit overwhelmed if the email was like super long.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it makes total sense that you, because like, if I started to writing my blog again, like, how would people actually know that I started working on it again? Well, yeah, the newsletter, obviously. I didn't really think of that. That's so good when you bounce ideas. And I was like, what do you think about this? I was like, oh, right. That's how you do it.
Or maybe you're like the trailblazer, because what is happening right now is Malena is launching a totally new idea on how to make newsletter, which actually there is like a proper magazine and the email is the entire magazine. I'm not saying this could happen, so I don't want to like discourage anything, because I think we are changing the way we consume stuff, but it's definitely not the standard practice.
Yeah. No, and I mean, obviously it would be good to have it on the website as well, because then you can search it easier on Google and it's always there. It's always going to be visible. So, I mean, yes, it makes sense. So I'll see how I will go about it. But I'll definitely, yes, I want to start a newsletter. And then, because right now I'm working on my next pattern, PDF pattern, Malva team. And that is going to be like a giveaway if you sign up to my newsletter. Is that possible to do? How do I send it out in the mail then, or how does it work?
Yeah, depending on the email provider or the newsletter provider you're choosing, you either are able to include the link. They have their own separate storage for downloads for files. MailChimp is a common company, and they have that. I use another one that is called MailerLite, and I think we're going to talk about both these later on, perhaps in the episode. But MailerLite doesn't have their own file storage, so you have to I use Google Drive and just make the file accessible using the share link. You can, of course, use Dropbox as well, or if you have file storage on your website, I think you could use that too. But I find that it's very helpful. It works, I would say, maybe like a couple of times a year. I get someone saying they can't access the Google Drive file, but because it's shareable, you don't need to have Google. So for instance, that's what you do. You would add your zipped file, or if your PDF files, depending on how you format it, you would add that to Google Drive. So, and then you just make the link in the newsletter.
Okay, so they can download it themselves, basically, then?
Yeah. So the process is like this. So what happens is that the process is like this. You create this, what they call a landing page, which is a page that you can either create on your website or using the tools that are in the email provider. So you've probably seen this when you go to website. Maybe there's a pop-up. There could also be a pop-up on your website, or you can go straight to the landing page. And on the landing page is basically just a little form where you add your email address, and by adding that, you also have to consent to getting information being sent to you. So you have to be transparent if that you will also add the people to your newsletter, so they are not just getting the file. I think that change that has, at least here in Europe, it has been like tightened. So you have to be quite transparent about that. I'm sure I don't do it everywhere, but you can also add a little box that you said, I want to get on the newsletter, or you can make it like mandatory, but then you have to tell people that you will also add them to the newsletter. And they can, of course, opt out later on when they get the email. And then they get an email with, so the file is attached, it's just a text link, and then I can click and, yeah.
Okay, but that sounds really, easy and convenient.
Yeah. So you only have to wait to share the link. And of course, since you are so active, your Instagram, I would say, is probably your most active spot. Then you just add the link, of course, to stories, and if your URL or the bio. And of course, if you have like a link tree, you can also add it there. So that's how you get like people to notice it, of course. And once it's done, we're going to add the link we're going to tell you how to find Malva Tea as well in the podcast. So if you're curious to get your hands on Malena's new pattern and get on a newsletter, then of course we're going to promote that. But it will happen perhaps in a couple of episodes further away here from, not right now. So it's pretty easy.
But that sounds good. And you talked MailChimp, and what was the other name now?
The other one is called MailerLite. I mean, there's a lot of different providers, and sometimes if you have like a shop system, for instance, Shopify has their own email. But you're on Etsy primarily now, right? So
yeah,
I don't
Etsy.
know if they have a newsletter, but every newsletter provider has a free version, which has a limitation either in how many emails you can send each month or how many subscribers you can have. And after that, you have to pay to keep sending your emails. So it's definitely an investment. I think if you're going to be serious about newsletters and want to grow your list, I think you have to be prepared to pay maybe, I would say maybe around 225 to 30 euro, which is about around 30 US dollars a month. I think that's probably the investment you have to make, at least if you want to like have a proper newsletter and have a decent amount of subscribers.
Yeah. Does any of them have like a free trial, or like in the beginning free before you reach the numbers, so to say?
Yeah. MailerLite you're able to send, I just checked, so if you listen to the podcast later on, they might have changed the terms, but currently MailerLite, which I use myself and highly recommend, they have a limit of 3,000 emails a month, and I think you have to pay a nominal fee per 1,000 emails. I think it's about $1, so that's not much. So your bill would be like, $2 to $3 a month. That's nothing. And 3,000 emails means that if you're sending just one email a month, that means you can have 3,000 subscribers on your list. But if you're sending one email a week, that means you can only have 750 subscribers, if I'm making the math correctly. So that depends on how many emails. Whereas I think MailChimp, which is very common starter brand, I think, they cap their free plan at 500 subscribers, and that's not a lot. I know it sounds a huge number when you're starting out, but I think to make an email a viable thing, I think you need to have at least several thousand subscribers, and it's going to happen when you have like a free thing, so to speak. And in full transparency, almost everyone that ends up on a newsletter in many business settings are doing it not because they primarily want to get the news. It's usually because they start with a free thing, for instance a pattern, or in my case I have different guides and templates that you can download. So that's how I use my email in lots of times. So I promote it both on my YouTube channel in some videos, and of course on my website and on Facebook sometimes. So it's a lot of different ways of getting subscribers. So I think it's usually there's an exchange basically between the free thing and you being willing to get on the newsletter list.
Yeah, and why have you chosen that type of mailing list, like instead of MailChimp?
I started with MailChimp, and then I quickly realized that I felt it was going to be very expensive once you hit that cap. And also I listened to a podcast with a guy, he's not in the sewing business, but I think and he said he made a switch to MailerLite. I think it's an Estonian company, but it's in English. And he said, it had all the features that MailChimp and was easy to use and less expensive. So I made a switch, and I love MailerLite. I think it's amazing, but I pay way more than 25. I think I pay, I don't know. I think I paid maybe 80. I pay a yearly plan, but I would say that my newsletter bill runs in the perhaps $1,000 a year maybe.
But do you have a lot of subscribers then?
Yes, I have about, it varies because I clean my list sometimes, but around 12,000 to 13,000 subscribers usually.
Yeah. Interesting. And then and it's so good, I think, to hear somebody else who's like, you tried both, obviously, and if you think for me MailerLite is going to be the best solution, I'm all for it. That's what I will go for. Recommendations is the best.
Yeah, and if you would like to change, you can migrate. I did that, so you just export your contacts, and then I think you have to but I think because they already agreed to be on the list, I think it's okay to transfer them to another company, if mine makes sense. And it's also it's very easy to unsubscribe. You have to have the unsubscribe link in every newsletter. So of course, it's not like you won't be able to, it's very easy for you to get out of the newsletter as well, if you want to. That's very important.
Yeah. Do you subscribe to many different newsletters?
I subscribe to some sewing newsletters because I like to see how they are doing things. Um, I also have a few other like business, like online business newsletter as well. I would definitely say that I do look at them more for inspiration as a business owner rather than a consumer. So I feel maybe I'm not the right audience for newsletter. How about you, Malena?
No, and I'm gonna be really honest now. I just subscribed to your newsletters like last week or something, and then I also signed up for a couple of other companies as well, like sewing companies, just because like I want to see how other people are doing it. Like I mean, doing research basically, and to see what. When you first get the welcome letter, how does that look? And just see what they are writing. So I don't I don't subscribe to a lot of newsletters in general as well. I I want to see now. I signed up for a couple of them to do some research and get inspiration as well.
Yeah, it would be really interesting to hear everyone who's listening how you guys are thinking about newsletter and if you find it useful. Because as we then both confess that we are not large consumers of newsletter ourselves, I do find it fascinating, as I said, that I have such a high open rate. So it's basically like 5,000 people opening every email I send. And another thing I think is frequency, to talk about that. Have you had any thoughts about how often you want to send a newsletter?
I mean, once a month, I think will be the maximum what I can achieve actually. So it's not a lot, not often.
Yeah, that's probably realistic as well if you're just starting out, and also it's going to be a lot of work. As we kind of talked about in the earlier, you have to write it twice, right? You have to start doing a blog post, and then you have to like re-enter some of the information and some other information as well. So I think I wish I could say I do once a month. I try to, but I would say I average about 8 to 10 a year. But it's also, a newsletter is not just a way of compiling sewing tutorials and information, is also a marketing tool. So for instance, I'm very grateful that I have it when it's a Black Friday sale, because I always run a Black Friday sale. I'm extremely grateful that I have it when I launch a new pattern, because it's my number one selling source. If you compare to, say, Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, the newsletter is the biggest, the most effective marketing tool for me.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I think it's a little bit, what you said earlier about that we don't maybe sign up for so many newsletters, but we are also not, how can I say, the customer. We are the business behind that want to reach the customer. So I think that, might be different. If you have sewing as a hobby, maybe then you are more, maybe you want to have a newsletter in a different purpose than compared to us, I think, because you want to know when it's pattern release and new tutorials or something like that you can actually find useful if you're sewing as a hobby.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's definitely what happens when you do this for a living. It becomes it's a very different perspective. So sometimes you don't want to have too much either consume, because you have to also create. So there's a balance there, I think, as well. You get too influenced as well if you start to look too much at what other people are doing, and you maybe get like inferiority complex. Like you feel maybe they are doing so well, but of course bigger sewing companies, they have more people working for them, so they are probably able to crank up more newsletter, or they put more focus on that in their business. So
yeah, that makes sense. And I think the big takeaway here is that I need that website.
Yeah,
I can't avoid it.
Yeah, you've heard that saying. You probably don't build on borrow ground, right? Have you heard that saying?
Yeah.
Where you don't base your business on a platform that is owned by Meta or Google or any other large company, because you're in the hands of the algorithms, or you can get, I mean, we probably won't get banned because we're not that provocative in our content. Who knows? But maybe there's some sewing words that are also not okay. But we are definitely in the hands of decisions of big companies, and they can fold. They can start to not push your content out to your followers. So that's why, like, the traditional marketing philosophy is that you need to have two things: a website and a newsletter. That's where you're going to start. And social media is for reaching a new audience and relationship building, but the foundation of your business is your website and your email list. And I personally, and I think I'm going to stick my head now, because we're going to have a business that we're going to be frank. I think too many people in the sewing community are relying too heavily on Instagram. That's my take. I think you can spend so much time making enticing reels and everything, but honestly, you have to make sales as well. And you have to manage to get people inside your own ecosystem. And I think, in my opinion, I think a lot of people, if they want to grow their business, are not focusing enough on other platforms.
Yeah, and I definitely, long-term plan, definitely I want to have my own website, and I also want to be able to sell my own patterns from my website. Right now I'm only relying on Etsy, and I think Etsy can be really difficult to search on. For example, if I search for my own pattern brand name, Hazelhen Patterns, it's really tricky to actually find my own site. And I was like, but I'm writing my exact names and everything, and it just everything else comes up instead of my own patterns. So I don't want to rely on Etsy either. I want to have it on my own site, but of course, I mean, then you have to pay another fee to be able to sell on your own site. And I'm not really there yet in my selling that I can justify to pay that fee. So I want to grow a little bit more before I start selling on my own website. But that's definitely the long-term plan.
Yeah, it's definitely expensive. I use Shopify for clarity, and I think most that are doing slightly larger businesses are doing either on Shopify or WooCommerce, which is the WordPress plugin that if you're doing like a traditional blog, you can also use that. Some people are extremely successful on Etsy, but I agree it's very difficult. I think search takes a lot of time to index. I mean, you change your pattern name for new. It's probably going to take a while before it shows up as well. And you don't have control. And of course, everyone will raise their fees. I mean, Shopify, you're also dependent on how they change their fee structure. And even if you have WooCommerce, which is their own free platform, you still have to use payment providers. So for instance, PayPal and Stripe. So it's just like a side note, if you buy anything from us or our shop, we don't see any credit cards or anything like that, because it's all handled by third-party companies, and they charge fees that are deducted from our pay. So we don't make the actual sum. So we always have to pay something, either to Etsy, to the payment provider, or Shopify, and usually a combination of several different providers.
But when you sell, because that's also interesting to know, when I sell on Etsy, it's really convenient for me when I do the bookkeeping then later on, because I get monthly, this is how much you earned. And that's one thing then that I had to register. But how does it work when you have your own web shop? Do you have to track every single item you sell, or is it also bi-monthly or something?
With my accountant, it's okay that I do a once monthly statement with all the sales and the VAT, which is the issue for me is the VAT, the sales tax. Yeah. Because if Etsy, they handle that for you, but I have to make sure that I have to make sure that the correct tax is added to all the countries that adds the use sales tax. Because we are in the EU, it's easier because all the countries here, we can apply the same kind of tax system. But for instance, UK, and if the US is going to start demanding tax as well, tax payments are going to be absolutely a nightmare. So I think if you are a small business, Etsy is the place to be, and then you have to just focus on getting people to Etsy because it's time also costs money. So I spend more time on that. I have to use a separate program that I have to pay for to get the tax statements, for instance.
Yeah, that's what I'm dreading. Like, I don't want to. It's so convenient with Etsy that they take care of all of that and make sure that it's right. And to start to keep track of all the taxes to the different countries, that's like, oof, I don't want to do that.
No, I think you make a wise decision. But the good thing is if you pick MailerLite, for instance, is that they are integrated to, for instance, Shopify. So you're able to add like your products in that store with just a click. So if you want to like promote your latest pattern or some pattern that are related to something, you can just import that with the image and the shop button and all the other stuff. So it's very easy, and you can show the sales price as well. So it's just automated, and then you can also track that's why I say that a newsletter makes me money even though it costs me money, because I can see exactly how many sales each newsletter has generated for me in Shopify.
Ah, interesting, because that you really want to know as well, like the statistics, like what should you really aim for to do, and like where should you focus your time and energy on. And that's great to get data showing that, like how much it generates. It's really, really a good thing.
Yeah, that's really good. And maybe there are some integrations with Etsy as well. In some companies, I don't think MailerLite does, but maybe there are some options as well. So that could be good before you make your pick. You could see if there's a clever way of integrating your Etsy shop with the newsletter. Then maybe it could be helpful as well. And
yeah, sounds good.
Another thing I want to say about newsletter is the fact that it's a great way of repurposing content. So for instance, in my newsletter, I don't just promote new content because I have maybe 200-300 tutorials on my blog. and some, I think at least a good portion of them are pretty good, pretty ambitious. Some, of course, maybe from 2008 with dark pictures, maybe those aren't the one I'm promoting. But in the last few years, I put a lot of effort really doing like super professional tutorials. And so, for instance, what I do is that I usually pick a theme for my newsletter. So, for instance, right now I am blogging like a mad person trying to get out a tutorial serial about sewing your own trousers with specific tutorials. And so, so it's going to be like talk how I work. Like I'm going to show you behind the scenes because I work extremely strategically about newsletters. Yeah. So, for instance, right now I have I made a pair of pants. I talked about that in a previous episode as well. And right now I am blogging about how to, like specific parts. I've done one about how to do front pockets. I'm just about to finish, probably it's going to be out when this episode is out, how to sew your own, sew a trouser zipper. And I'm also working on making curved waistband and also hidden belt loop. So I think it's going to be 4 tutorials in total. And for me, because I'm so excited about this, because I know that just posting on the blog is just one thing, but then I can package everything into a newsletter. So I can I can just collect that. But that's not the only thing. So I'm going to do like a step further than that, is that on the blog, and I'm also planning on doing a YouTube video showing the zipper, because I think the zipper is the one that people have the biggest struggle with. Then I'm gonna have a freebie. So because I'm doing like a really proper zipper with the fly and a fly shield, so I'm gonna offer those like templates for a fly shield and a zipper, so you can have all this piece of if your own pants pattern doesn't have the right fly extension, everything, you can just download them as a free PDF, like you print out on a letter or A4 paper. So it's super easy. Just small. I have that for my jeans zipper tutorial as well, which has I think maybe it's almost 1 million views on YouTube. So I know that zipper works.
Yeah.
Zipper works. So that's how I do. That's my, like they call it like freebies or lead magnets. So if you watch my jeans zipper tutorial, some people will download the pattern template kit. They will get on the newsletter list, and they will also get pitched my book Sewing Jeans. And once I get my jeans sewing course, they will of course also get pitched the jeans sewing course. So I do the same for my cover stitch material. In several of the videos I have, I pitch my free downloadable troubleshooting guide. You download that, you get on my news list. You also get pitched my cover stitch book and my cover stitch sewing course, Cover Stitch Success. So it's like a whole ecosystem. So for instance, for me, meaning that I just don't do a pants tutorial, right? I'm also creating ways to get more people into my email subscriber list.
Oh, that's interesting to hear. Really, like it's how it all affects each other, and how to really be strategic about it as well, and to plan ahead. Because that's the best thing when you know that now you have content to talk about in your newsletter or Instagram or whatever, that you actually have a couple of posts ready to go. So yeah, that's really, you have a lot in the pipeline. And I have to say, like, your website is really good. I mean, that's library. If I search anything like how to sew, your website is the first one I go to, and I just write hem or shoulder stabilize or shoulder seam, sewing bust dart or anything. And then you get, I mean, so much information there. Because I do that a lot when I write my own sewing instructions. I find it so difficult to just, like, I know how to sew it, but to write it down in a proper text, I struggle really with that. So then I just like, okay, so how did Johanna do it?
I love that. Yeah. I love to hear that. Yeah, it's still Google is your friend until AI is taking over everything. That's probably one episode we have to do in the future, right?
Yeah, definitely.
but yeah, until that makes me so happy to hear, because that's why I always try to think like I do this for the long term. I am
definitely.
also. And I'm actually a librarian. Initially, that was my first profession. So I like.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool.
I studied as a librarian in your hometown, Umeå. Yeah.
Oh, really?
In the mid-90s. So I worked as librarian, and then I became a journalist. I trained as a journalist, and now I work in communications. So I've had a long, not just running a sewing business. That's always been mostly a part-time thing, but yeah. But I do like the idea of like collecting information, organizing them in a very like nice way for the user to find them. I think that's like the secret to, because I think I'm pretty prolific about my books, sewing books, but I'm not like a sewing celebrity. I think most people don't know who I am. So for me, having accessible information in different platforms, that's probably my number one way of gaining like more eyeballs on me and more people finding me, because I don't think people like know me. I'm not a brand like that, but yeah, just being searchable is, I think.
Yeah, I mean, those tutorials are really, really good. And I, for example, in my sewing instruction for the t-shirts, I show them I show one way to stabilize the shoulder seam, but then I write that you can do it in several different ways, and then I actually link to your blog post that here's our other ways to do it, because I mean, obviously I can't write every single different way of doing it in my sewing instructions, but then it's so convenient to have a link like and to great tutorials like this is how you can do it in other ways as well. So I have that link in my sewing instructions.
Oh, thank you so much. And also now a shameless plug about our book Fit for Knits, because there we show all the different ways you can stabilize your shoulder as well, with very like detailed illustrated step-by-step tutorials. So if you want to learn even more, you can also check out our book Fit for Knits, where we talk about that as well. But yeah, thank you so much. That makes me so happy to hear, and I agree with you, because you don't want to overwhelm the user of a pattern as well, to show like 10 different ways of doing it. But I think once you get more seasoned as a sewist, I think you will be more inclined to experiment with different methods and different materials, and just see what works for your particular project. So thank you. That makes me happy.
Yeah, and also want to show like this is the way I mostly do it. But it's not the only way. Like you can do it in many different ways, and it's not just that one way that works. Like you can do it other ways as well. And some garments, some type of fabric requires maybe another type of stabilizer. So I think it's important to like be open about that. That yes, you can do it in different ways, and they are all correct, depending a little bit on your project, of course. But you can. There are lots of different ways to do it.
Yeah, that's our philosophy, because we always want to. We don't want to say there's just one way. There's so many ways. It's not just our way or the highway. What do you say? Yeah, I think you have to be very humble when you teach things, because there are always other ways of doing things. So it's very important to keep that in mind. I don't think it benefits anyone to say just do this and be like very strict about it, because it doesn't. It takes a lot of fun out of sewing in your own experimentation.
Yeah, and I'd rather explain like why do you need to do something, like the reason behind it, because then you can obviously also think for yourself, like, can I do it in another way? I still reach the end goal, but yeah, you can do it in different ways.
Yeah. I also remember another thing about newsletter I want to say as well, as it's going to be a lot of work for you up front, but you can also repurpose previous emails. So for instance, because I've done newsletter for so many years, some are just the same basically. So for instance, Black Friday sale, I don't write every one from scratch. I just copy it and then send it out again with perhaps a new code or to the sale. Another thing as well, I mean, just because you made or published a tutorial about a particular thing like 2 years ago, I don't think people will even remember that if you send it out again 2 years later. So it's not like you don't have to start over every single newsletter. It's going to be a lot of work up front, publishing some new blog posts, but also revisit your older blog library, because I think you're working with a rather specific genre within the sewing. I think you have so much content you can like build together. So that's what I love about newsletter, because you're kind of like able to curate a particular newsletter by linking different blog posts and different things that you will find useful. And also, of course, don't be afraid to market and pitch your sewing patterns and the book as well, because it all like So for instance, I would pitch the book in every newsletter as well, because there is something in the book that everyone will know are helpful.
Yeah, I think that sounds so like we are small businesses, we all work hard, but we need to work smart in a hard way. Like we need to be smart about how we create the content, because otherwise we are going to spend way too much time on that. And that is, it's not our product. We need to focus on the product. And in our newsletter, that shouldn't be like the most time-consumed thing in our business. Like it's the product we need to focus on. So that sounds really smart to be able to use what you got and use it in several different ways and several times. So that's really good. And if I'm gonna start it now, I promise I will do it in a proper way. So like it's gonna be easy to work in a smart way.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Just create like a template so you have that finished, and then you can just repurpose that and just fill it with a different tutorial. So put some effort into the design, and then you're all set to go. It's really like a drag and drop thing, and you can write. Yeah, you can also copy paste from your blog. You don't have to write. And I've used chat. Give it CBT, give it the chat, the AI robot for a couple of things. Just
how have you used that?
Like write an introduction to a sewing tutorial about making attaching a pair of zippers, for instance.
Oh, that's really smart.
And I'm not able to use it in its entirety, but and sometimes it's a little bit cheesy the way they write things. But I do find that they use some different words, especially for us, because English is not our first language. So it's very helpful. Because I think our vocabulary is a bit more limited because we don't speak English as a primary language. So it's kind of hard to find new words, a new way of expressing yourself, because we kind of stick to the same thing over and over. And I find that the AI writing tools, they help me get over that and like building new sentences and using different words to explain similar things. So I have started to use it more like a way of like getting over the writer's block. I think that's probably one of the best things, using it as getting over the writer's block, because you're going to feel that when you're doing your first newsletter. It's going to be a lot of blank spaces.
Yeah, and I mean, that sounds basically what I do with all the sewing instructions. I look what other people have written, how they have written it, and then I rewrite it to be my own, of course. But you get a starting point. You don't have a blank space anymore. You have something to work with. So I think AI is going to be really helpful for that too. I don't think you should ever just copy paste and send it out. That's not going to be authentic to you. But definitely as a starting point to just get something to work with, I think is going to be really helpful.
Yeah. So it's really exciting now, because in some future episode we're gonna have an official release party, right, for the first newsletter. Hopefully, I'm very excited to share this once it's out, and of course the Malva tea as well. So yeah, it's really, really exciting, and I hope you enjoy this, like the behind the scenes chat about what it's like running a sewing business, because it's a lot of consideration. And I think, Malena, you brought such a great point, because we have very limited time. We are usually just one person doing everything. Many of us also have other jobs as well. So how do we do the most, like, how can we reach like the biggest efficiency, or how to reach our goals the easiest and least time consuming way as possible? That's something we always have to figure out. And for me, I'm not as active sometimes as Instagram, but that's also partly because active choice, because I find that if I do the deep work, like doing blog posts and writing books and doing YouTube videos and tutorials, I find that helps me more in the long run. Short term, maybe not, but over the years, I find that my deep, time-consuming work has always paid off. But sometimes, of course, you have to do marketing as well. But as you know, when we do have so limited resources, we have to do marketing smart.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the takeaway from this episode, I think, is I can't just focus on the newsletter. I will sometimes soon in the future also have a website.
Yeah. I hope you're going to be like a trailblazer. I always like to see the blogging making a comeback. So I think you're right. You're ahead of the times, Malena. It's definitely time for a blog how should I say it? Like a revisiting or revival, a blog revival. I think we're going to predict that for 2024. The sewing blog is making huge comeback, and Malena is
fingers crossed.
It's the trailblazer. So, yeah, thank you so much for listening to this, and we also love to hear you share your thoughts about this. You will find us, of course, on Instagram, because that's where we are. You find me over at Last Stitch. And where do people find you, Malena?
Hazelhen Patterns.
And what will the address be to find your new, future, updated, very much happening sewing blog?
I actually already have registered the domain hazelhenpatterns.com. I mean, I'm not going to change my company's name. unless I have the domain. Like I registered that right away.
That's awesome. So if you listen to this in the future, maybe you will be able to find Malena's blog there as well. And my blog you will find over at theloststitch.com, where you can see lots of stuff I talked about now, all the tutorials and all the like ecosystem and my freebies and stuff like that. You will find all these things and the books, of course, that we are doing as well. And don't forget to check out our latest book, Fit for Knits, where you will learn even more about sewing and fitting knit clothes. Thank you so much for listening or watching if you watch this on YouTube. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.